So we've been having a conversation all morning, which led to a conversation of you feeling like I've kind of checked out.
Yeah.
It seems like I've checked out. Maybe I have to a certain degree because I'm going, what are we doing? Rachel asked that question last year, what are we doing? You would think that if you were plugged into the creator of the cosmos, you'd know more what you're doing. But for me, it's going, my mind is racing. I may look like I'm dead in the water, but my mind is racing all the time, and I feel like God is teaching me, or he's saying to me, I want you to be. You still don't get it. I love you, son, but you don't get it. You're still doing and being productive, and being sounds counterproductive. And by the way, I'm dredging up the crap in your life that has been buried down there, and it's dredging it up.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, so with your mind racing, like, what is it racing with? Like, what is the wrestling? What is the struggle?
A lot of it's relational. It's all connected. There's thread through it, and it's really it's intimacy with the Father and relational. It's almost all of it's relational. Mental health, body, soul, and spirit, or health, body, soul, and spirit.
Yeah, we have relationships with ourselves, and then we have it with God, and then we have it with other people,
right.
And no matter which way you look at it,
vertical and horizontal.
Yeah, there is relationship to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's just I've been with y'all now 2 years, and
it's
so
crazy to
I know
think that.
it's just really crazy. So just to be with you, I think that's long enough for us to start to see the changes. Or I guess maybe not see them, but be aware. For me, being aware of the changes, of seeing what it was like when I first got here, and then how we're all shifting and growing, and being like, oh, like you're different, like how you were when we first started this podcast to how it is right now, and what we're dealing with right now. It's just different. And so, being in the ebb of flow with other people it's just a lot.
It is. Well, one is I'm looking at how beautiful you are, and that I can't believe I made something like you. And your mom and me.
Thanks.
But also
Thanks,
just your spirit and
and then how I always
annoy the hell out of me.
Yeah, and give you crap and
no, I was
dog
gonna ask
you and everything.
So all of it's the relational stuff that you and I have been talking about, and we're not the only ones. We talked to two 20-year-olds today, Ellie and Hayden, and they got a whole other set of things going on in their lives. And it's like we were going to do a talk. We were going to talk about your testimony, your story, how God is restoring you, and we're putting that off to another time. But it's the beginning, the middle, and the end. And like Hayden and Ellie are in the beginning. You're in the middle, and I'm in this other. Mom and I are in this other stage.
Well, do you feel like that's the transition that you're in? Is like realizing more that you're in that latter stage, the third stage of life or whatever?
Yeah, the thing is, you start going, I'm actually going to die someday.
Right.
And people don't want to talk about it. But yeah, you actually are going to die, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
And even if you live to 100 years old and die in your sleep, it's still a vapor. And yet there's a season for it. But
a season for what?
For dying, and there's a season. But the season now is not for dying. The season is for living.
Well, we have the physical death. There's that, but we also every day there's death.
Yeah, and that's kind of chasing a rabbit. But
yeah.
But I think what it was is we're in these seasons, and for me, my mind is racing, and God is going, shh, be still, son. You're trying to fix it. You're trying to fix your relationships with leaders that you think suck as leaders, and you feel pathetic because you think all that, and for me, I'm learning that I haven't really loved myself very well.
That's deep, Dad.
Yeah, and it's like.
Well, what does that mean? What
I
does
don't
that
even know
look
yet.
like to you?
I don't know. It's just I hate this word. I do hate it. Trigger. KK says it all the time. I hate that word, but it's true. The things that are triggering me or God is revealing to me is that there's things that have been passed on to me generationally that I had nothing to do with, and yet I somehow feel guilty about and somehow struggle with. And it was my grandfather's fault, who was an alcoholic. Okay, so as I say famously, so what?
Right.
In the world, nobody cares. Jesus cares. Your family cares sometimes, but who cares? What do I do about that? And part of it is is awareness.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I know I need to change, but I don't have to. Nobody's going to make me change.
Right.
I can either do it or not do it. And that's where I'm at, is my mind's racing. And when I go, well, there's something wrong with that person. They don't recognize me. They don't acknowledge me. They don't give me the time of day. Poor me. It doesn't mean that they're right. It just means that that's not something that I control. But I spend my days and nights like a chinchilla on a wheel, just going round and round. It's like, it's a distraction. And I think Dallas Willard even talks about, and John Mark Comer and some of those guys talk about, the biggest enemy of our growth spiritually is distraction.
Yeah.
And so it can be,
it's having to sift through, like, what's the distraction, what is the light that it's revealing, like, what is the evidence, or I don't know if it's evidence, or what are the details of that, the noise that are actually.
for me.
No, I'm just saying, like, maybe, yeah. Hold on, let me see how I ask this. Like, when you sift through and you said it's drudging stuff up, what's the distraction and what's the opportunity of growth? And then being able to discern.
What's the opportunity for growth?
Yeah, because
Is that the question?
if something is triggering you, it's information. So it's bing, bing, bing. It's highlighting something to you. So it might be a distraction, but it also is information that's like, okay, this is the area that I'm poking, and I want you to look at it. And so how do you?
I'm poking. So who's poking it? Me or God or
God, I
all
would
of
say.
us?
I would say all of it. Yeah, maybe all. I don't know.
And he uses people to poke it, like with me. You irritating me, or somebody irritating me. One of my favorite leaders, or one of my not so favorite leaders, irritates me. Why?
Yeah, what is it? Yeah, what is it saying about you,
right.
not really the other person?
And learning how to immediately go to me instead of that person. Like when I would interview people in the HR world, interviewed 5,000 people in my career probably, is I'd some people you just walk up to and you don't like them. You just don't like them. And you're not going to say that. But in your head you're going, okay, why am I biased about this person? Are they a jerk? Are they stupid, or what is it, and so you go. I learned how to talk myself out of that. Why am I biased? Is it because they look weird, or whatever? And it's turning it to me.
And also the other side of that would be
discernment.
the people that you like for no reason.
Oh yeah.
What is that like? You know what I mean? Like
we were talking about that this morning.
Like when you recognize someone's beauty and you see that and you're attracted to them, like, yeah, what about that? Like for me, when I think of my past, whether it's, I guess I'm thinking more like romantic relationships, I was often drawn to people who had qualities that either I wanted myself or we related on, in terms of like we shared similar past
or sometimes
trauma.
It's just chemistry and you don't know why, it's just you can't help who you're attracted to, but being aware of it.
Yeah.
So you had talked to me about it doesn't seem like I'm motivated, and I think part of that is probably physiologically, too much information, health concerns at my age. I'm almost 70 now. So things start changing, and in physiologically and physically and even mentally. You know, you're maybe not as sharp as you used to be, or it's. I was talking to a friend of mine, Mike D, yesterday or Sunday, and it was like, he said, "There's nothing wrong with us," you know, or he was feeling like maybe he just goes, "I just don't want to do that stuff anymore." So it's getting old and getting set in my ways. And part of my wrestling is I don't want to be set in my ways. I don't want to be an old man who acts like an old man. And that's kind of scary to think that, you know, I'm acting like an old man. I'm acting like that old man on Up, you know. You know, but, you know, it's.
Well, when you say old man, like, what is that? What do you think of an old man? Like,
Have your pants pulled up to your armpits and wear white socks with black shoes.
Yeah, and just being rigid, just being
inflexible,
grumpy, and
not reaching out, saying that millennials like my kids, like you guys, the ball's in your court. I've done everything I'm doing. I'm not doing another damn thing. You're on your own, and just.
Do you feel like that sometimes? Is that what you want to do?
No. Because you know me, I feel like my whole goal in life is to invest in that generation. Don't always know how to do it. That was one of the things we were talking about today is we're trying to do this podcast and other projects, and some days I just don't feel motivated, and some days I'm resistant. Like, you know, what irritates you about me?
When you drag your slippers and they're really loud. It's like, shh, shh, shh.
Yeah, that's
a no. I mean, that is actually, I get annoyed, but I'm like, why am I annoyed right now?
Or, you know, me sitting watching TV in the evening, 4 hours.
I think that frustrates me because I think you're in this place where I feel like you don't think you have a lot to offer. And I feel like you do. And then I see you sitting around wasting away like your energy on TV and other people's stories. And I'm like, Dad, like you could be doing.
But did you know that I've written
much.
8 songs in the last 2 months?
No, I did not know that. Which I know, and I know you're doing that too. I don't mean to be. I'm not trying to be judgmental. Maybe I am.
You're not trying. You are being judgmental. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's not a lot really that you do. I think sometimes it is still hard. Sometimes I feel like you still interrupt and. Don't really I don't feel like you're listening to what I'm saying. You're just waiting to say something.
I'm waiting for you to take a breath.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so
what about you? What do I do?
You're a perfectionist, which I didn't really realize, and it's really bugs the hell out of me sometimes. Like you can't see it, but because we're not supposed to act like the camera's there, but there's pine brush piled on one side to make it level, and yet at the same time that's a good quality when you're trying to do good work. And what I'm seeing is look in the mirror.
Well, we have people in our lives, especially family, that highlight certain things about ourselves that we like or don't like.
Partners do that too.
Yeah, it's really hard to face those things that you see about yourself that you don't necessarily like. And what you said before about I haven't been the best at loving myself, like I think that is something that really hit me back, you know. And
part of that came from your story.
Yeah, and that's my Port Angeles era of being just in a really dark place. People on the outside would be like, oh, you know, everyone loves you and you love everybody and and that's just not the case.
And if it was, so what?
And whatever. But there's things that I notice about the way that I talk to myself about me, like, and I have to be very aware when it happens, and I'm not always aware. But when I reflect, I'm like, oh man, like I was just harsh with myself, and it makes sense why I would be harsh with you or harsh with anybody else when I can't actually like be gentle and compassionate and give myself grace because of that perfectionism or whatever.
And maybe you felt that as a kid, but I was just thinking what you struggle with, what you came to the table with stuff that Mom and I spiritually or DNA wise gave you.
Well, yeah, that's what, when, was it yesterday, we were unpacking the shed and we found Grandpa's
yeah.
old slides, and I have an
Yeah.
old projector, and then so it was cool. It was a cool scene. It was like a cool moment, because I was checking out these slides from the 50s in Japan from Grandpa, and then
Yeah.
you were playing those old records that were from
We
the
found from the
50s too.
the 40s even.
So it was a scratchy record player sound going on in one room, and then this loud projector with slides clicking, and it just was very like,
Visceral.
yeah, it was very visceral, and the smells, the smell
yeah.
of old antique, like only time can create those kind of smells. Grandpa was really into photography and was creative. You are, and then that's passed down to us, and then even my niece and nephew in their own ways.
Yeah.
And so talking about the things that we have taken on from our family, and a lot of times we focus on the negative, the alcoholism in our family, the lack of self-confidence or not feeling like you're enough, and then we look at the other side of that, and it's like our ancestors passed on a lot of other really amazing
Good
things.
stuff.
Yeah.
They were godly people. They were willing to grow and change. I mean, there's so many stories about, like in the 20s, they were lived out in Texas, West Texas, piled into a Model A Ford in 1922. Sounds like Grapes of Wrath, and drove from Crowley, Texas to Los Angeles in a Model A Ford. My grandfather was,
Yeah, that's crazy.
my grandpa was 14.
That's crazy.
But so there's that spirit of that people talk about you as my kids having a great work ethic.
Well, and the adventure and all, I think we all have that. Like,
Yeah, we moved like 6 times when you were a kid.
yeah, well, and it's neat too, because Kiki and I were looking, like, she's spent time living in Colorado, I did, and then I'm looking at these slides, and they were from like Loveland Pass and the Continental Divide. Like,
You don't get a free pass. You can jam that stuff down and not deal with it and not embrace it, and it comes out in other ways, either mental health wise, physical health, spiritually. Spiritually right now, I mean, it's weird because I'm in this place, Mom and I are in this place of taking our vows and joining this Anglican order, and yet I feel probably as dry as I have. And it's like, so does that mean what happened? And what I think is happening, God is stripping away the religiosity, but I don't want to go to a building and act like I'm doing something and then come away and not be different.
right.
I'm not saying any of it's wrong. It's not. I'm just saying where I'm at is God's going, I want you to know me. I don't care about chairs in a building.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that's the collective shift that so many of us are experiencing. Everyone we're talking to is there's this internal wrestling. There's chaos. I mean, everywhere you look externally, and so, we touched on this last episode, but just the stillness, and like people are like so exhausted, so tired of the same things, of like, yeah, why do I go to church every Sunday and I'm not any different than I was 5 years ago?
So let me ask you a question then. So when I'm sitting at night after everybody's gone to bed and it's quiet and I'm just zoned out, being so tired of my mind racing and all that other stuff that I just sit there and I want to be entertained. I don't want to. I want to shut the engine off.
Yeah.
And learn. I thought I knew how to do that. I mean, I've been doing focused on spiritual formation since at least 2015. Maybe longer. I read the Divine Conspiracy in Memphis.
Wow. Yeah.
And now it's like I was trying to read yesterday. I could hardly even focus.
Yeah.
And you asked me about it.
But I don't think that's just you. I think that it's our spirits like crying out.
Crawling.
Yeah.
Because they're emaciated.
Yeah. Yeah. And saying like, okay, business as usual, church as usual isn't what isn't the heart of God, you know?
Yeah,
Like
and our pastors are saying that too.
yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Every sector, wherever you're looking, wherever you're putting your energy, whether that's in, you know, your church community, your regular community, you know, any spirit, like in any context, like this
They don't
is
even know how to
coming.
interpret it, right? I mean, people feel what you're saying,
Yeah, the restlessness,
and they don't know what it is. And we think we have an idea of what it is because we know it's body, soul, and spirit. But how do you deal with that when you have no idea? Like, why am I anxious when there's no apparent reason for me to be anxious? Where does it come from?
yeah, it's very complex. Being human is very complex.
Yeah.
I think it's, you know, it's a mixture of things. It's, you know, that's something that it's like you can go into so many different paths to explore, you know, the things that happen to us as kids that just come out now, you know, and you feel it like in the sense that you feel it in your body because it's been suppressed. Or we watched Inside Out 2 the other day.
Oh yeah, man.
And
Watch that.
Gosh,
So
yeah.
good. I want to watch it again.
So good. But just the anxiety that people are feeling and how it's this all this energy gets wasted on things that haven't even happened yet or won't ever happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this protective survival mode. And God's like I said, like what we're all saying is like being still, just being, finding solitude. Like Anna and I just were having a conversation after the last podcast and she was talking about just, yes, like community is so important and we believe in radical community and how do we create that? And this other side to it is like, there's so much demand to be a human right now. And that sounds so privileged, you know, American, like first world problems, and they are.
Yeah.
But it is, it's like just to go about being like who you are day to day, it's like there's so much coming at us and it's like God's like chill out. It's like how do you rest? Like we don't have to do
Well,
a million
Sabbath, right?
things. Yeah.
In our
yeah.
culture, Sunday is just another day, and it's exhausting.
It's not sustainable, and we're seeing that. We're seeing
Yeah.
consumerism on overdrive, and so how do you balance having radical community day to day and resting and having a heart posture that is centered around solitude and quietness and being?
So how do you do it? Like, you and I have been talking about this. So how do you actually do that? Because I know you do work on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I know I'm in this stage of developing my rule of life and a rhythm of life. And so that means day to day, what are the practices that I'm doing, that's funny,
Yeah.
that help create space to breathe into the quietness and the ceasing. That's what Sabbath means, is to cease. Cease.
Cease. C-E-A-S-E.
Yes,
Cease.
like stop. And it's not just like,
Is that from the Hebrew?
yeah, I was listening to this podcast called Pearls, and she's talking about Sabbath. And for me, when I think about, okay, what does my Sabbath look like? I might think, oh yeah, like go shred a mountain. And that might be what it is that day. And it also might be something of what's the difference between me, whatever I'm giving my energy to, is it restoring me or is it just stimulating me? Like sometimes it's like, it's not about stimulating, just like getting my heart rate up, and that's part of it.
Maybe it's totally not about that.
Right. Right. But like
sometimes.
Right. But like like something I've been doing, like I think it's just how I approach the shifts throughout the day. It's like on my way to places, like oftentimes don't play music. I just
be silent.
Be silent.
So
be
that's
still.
a way. That's one of the things you do is silence.
Right. In the morning, I try to have that silence, and oftentimes when I don't do that, and I miss that window of like that hour, especially like an hour is kind of a sweet spot for me. I can tell throughout the day. I'm just not as, I don't feel anchored. I don't feel as like present or some, I get really scattered and all over the place. But when I have that stillness, where that time where I'm praying or meditating or reading scripture, just being, again, just being, I can tell I get thrown off,
Same. Yeah.
Or like, I'll notice throughout the day, my phone's attached to my hand and I can't let it go. I can't. And I'm sitting there being like, I need to get off of this. And I'm seriously like staring glazed
It's almost
over.
like a crackhead,
And maybe that's why I get triggered with you watching TV, because it's the same thing with me and my phone.
Yeah.
So it's like calling something on me, to be like, but yeah, you know what I mean? Like the things that I see in other people that upset me, it's when I give it a moment, I'm like, okay, this might actually be something that I'm dealing with that I need to face.
Well, I think that's another part of these practices we're talking about. One is silence, and it's practicing silence, body, soul, and spirit, because you can be sitting quiet and not talking, and your mind's going a million miles an hour.
Right.
It's also solitude. We were in a solitude place. Now there's guys unloading buckets and chains over there. And we appreciate their sensitivity to us. No, sarcasm.
We did that. We saw a baby deer that was so cute.
Oh yeah.
And then on our way a hike here, we saw that hawk, which was
Beautiful.
right. I mean, not even 20 yards away from us.
Hey, real live example while you and I are talking is there's always going to be something that tries to distract you. It can be even a good thing, like seeing a beautiful hawk in the woods, or 3 construction workers unloading a truck. No, so it's but the whole thing of distraction is that's where I'm at. And even if you're in the body of Christ, or if you're in the West and we're churched out. I mean, churches everywhere. Sunday morning is a great big distraction.
So what do you do? Like, what helps you with, you said your mind's racing, and you said that you've been practicing the spiritual disciplines or been introduced to it for the last 20 years. So what?
Emphasis on the practice, getting consistent, realizing that God is God, whether you believe in him or not, and God is there, whether you think he's there or not. So learning how to go, I don't feel jack squat right now. God could not even exist. But based on my relationship over the past 55 years of walking with Jesus, I'd be an idiot to go, he's not here.
Yeah.
He is here, whether I feel him or not. And people go, that's just your imaginary friend. Well, I can't see him, but he's real, and I know he's real. And you can't tell me he's not real. I don't really care what people tell me about that, because I've experienced him. I am experiencing him. So I don't really care if people think he's real or not real. That's a distraction too. Getting all caught up in trying to prove all that stuff doesn't matter.
Right.
So for me, it's the discipline of being silent. And like this morning, being silent, and I'm thinking about, okay, got to do this, got this meeting, got to read that. I read that, it didn't make any sense. I didn't retain any of it. All of it's a distraction. The Buddhists probably have a better idea about that kind of discipline than Christians do.
Yeah. Well, because that's a part of, that is what
It's a practice. Buddhism is a practice.
Yeah, and you actually are in real time. When I went to one of the temples we were waking up at 4 every morning, and for 2 hours we would be in meditation and practice it.
So talk about that, Hilary. So what about that practice, and then the whole idea of don't tell me what to do, and in the West and Christianity is we are free from the law, and we are, but we're free from, it's like we threw the baby out with the bathwater, and it's like there's no discipline.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's what drew me to Buddhism was I saw the discipline and I liked it. I'm drawn to liturgy and ancient prayers, prayers that have been spoken for 1,000+ years.
Yeah.
And every word, every sound that you're uttering there's meaning to it. It speaks to a deeper part of my spirit. I mean,
The mystery.
breath.
Yeah.
Just that is something like multiple times a day I catch myself being like, just breathe.
And both said that actually Sunday.
Yeah.
Breathe. Well, okay, well we think, what is he? He's just going, okay, take a breath. No, there's discipline in that.
Right.
There's order in that, and if it's like some people are really turned off by Catholicism and the religiosity of it, but if you read those prayers that those people prayed and wrote down, there's power and peace and revelation in that stuff that we have missed because we are too, my words, my opinion, arrogantly think we've got it all figured out. Mm-hmm. And God's going, the more you know me, the less you know.
Yeah.
Because I am bigger than anything you can imagine. And for me, that's, I think, part of this journey I'm on right now is your God's this big.
Your God? You're saying like
my God's going, I'm this big to you. Mm. You have no idea. And we just don't get it. But that's the thing. God wants us to get him. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's like one of the hardest things, and it's a distraction too, is letting go of being right.
Yeah.
That is so hard, especially for a personality like mine. Because I think I know what everybody needs. If you just did this, Hilary, if you just did what I told you, you wouldn't be having this problem. Mm-hmm. Or that was, you should do this. Let me give you some advice you didn't ask for,
Yeah. Well, I think that you've had to get to that place with all of us kids. Yeah. And having the conversation of like, I'm not asking, like, I remember having to be like, Dad, I don't need coach right now. I just need dad. And that means listen. You don't need to fix. I'm not asking for advice. Just listen to me. And how often do we just listen to people and let people say what they're feeling and then not try to coddle them or, like fix it or interject our opinions? It's just letting that person be where they are.
So with that, Hilary, then that leads you to being nice and being honest, or being nice and being kind.
The difference.
And
yeah, that's what I'm learning and I'm struggling with. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want my feelings hurt. I want to be loved. And so sometimes I'll shut my voice off in order to keep the peace, quote unquote, when really I'm feeling a way about something and I don't know how to address it in a way that
we're afraid we're going to hurt somebody, but the lie is, so I'm sorry, I'm yelling. The lie is, no,
it's like echoing over the entire lake.
No, the lie is that we're never supposed to hurt anybody. And in our vows that Mom and I are taking is be true to Christ, be kind to everyone you meet, and take the good news to the world as you go. But being kind sometimes stings. Jesus, he's called people whitewashed tombs. Mm-hmm. And he seemed harsh sometimes.
Right.
But he was being kind. He was telling people how he felt. And he had compassion.
Well, so how does that even, like, okay, you say that and you often bring up stories of Jesus, which I love because he's amazing. But so what, like, how does that impact you right now today in the funk that you're in? Specifically, like, what does any of that make a difference for you right now in the funk that you're in?
Coming to the fact that sometimes, for me, I'm realizing I've known it all for years, but Jesus said there's going to be trouble. By the way, Jay, relationships are hard as hell. They're messy. They cost you money, time, and you never get repaid. Almost never. But I'm asking you to build. I was praying the other day, and it's clear as a bell. This was like 2 days ago. So I was whining about something, praying honestly. And he said, I created you to be a bridge builder. I was walking out at the quarry, and I was whining and complaining about some relationship that I'm struggling with for the last year. And he goes, I've called you to be a bridge builder. Be a bridge builder. You know, you see all these gaps, you see all these problems, you see all this stuff, and you want to complain and whine about it and tell everybody what to do. Be a bridge builder. He's just saying, be aware, be quieter, and ask me to show you how to build bridges. And it's relationship stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like what you and I are doing, it's turned into this whole thing we do on the podcast, but it's really about us building relationships and investing in memories in the future, not only for you, but for your children and for your children's children. When I'm a picture on the wall, your children will know who I am, or your children's children. And it's in this funk that I'm in, sometimes you just have to sit there.
Yeah, and know that
And
you can be in the funk, and you can still, I think that's the beauty too, is that you can still be in that and still find joy. It's the tension, and that to me is the bridge. Like thinking of a bridge is the tension of everything. Like right now, everything that is happening, I've been just a wreck with North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee and the devastation there. And feeling that fully, and just like find out ways that I can help in some kind of capacity, and experience true joy, with at the market I just had on Saturday, and I can feel moments of like guilt in that.
Why guilt?
Because I'm sitting there complaining about whatever, and then or happy and celebrating about this. I just made an art sale, and people are literally dying and are starving, and there's this like guilt that I feel sometimes of like, why is my life so great and other people's aren't, and then that's where it's like I feel like checking myself, and I'm allowed to enjoy life and feel grief at the same time, and be sad and depressed and all of it, and not to have any of those emotions take away from the other emotions.
My friend Mark says that our life is multifaceted, like a prism or whatever. I mean, that's a really good question about the funk. Is part of it is also going, I can choose to be depressed unless it's clinical. You can't help it, some of that, but I can choose to be down, I can choose to be unhappy, or I can choose to walk in joy.
Yeah.
I mean, ancient scripture from 2,000 years ago, Paul was writing from I think an area or a city called Philippi, and he was in jail, and they had the snot beat out of him, and another guy named Silas were in there singing spiritual songs and walking in joy and counting it all joy that they were experiencing the trials that they were. I'm not there.
Yeah.
I do not do that. And I don't think God wants us to walk around flagellating ourselves, and beating ourselves up. But for me, at the end of the day, is a lot of it has to depend on my response to these distractions and to these things in life, and my attitude, like gratefulness. How do you be grateful?
Well, what are you grateful for?
Yeah, so the answer is you be grateful by being grateful.
Yeah.
And for me, it's family. For me, I've got people around me that love me. I mean, I'm thinking of a bunch of them. My kids, my wife who puts up with my crap, a friend of mine, I'm thinking of them. I'm thinking of Rachel. I'm thinking of Mark and John and the other John. So I've got these guys around me, and Doug and my brothers and my cousins
Yeah.
and Lindsay and and the two Ellies and Aaron and all these people,
Darby.
um, Margaret
Yeah.
and Jim and people like that care.
Yeah. An
But-
abundance of.
Well, when you get in your panties in a wad and you're all upset about stuff, you stop thinking about that. So the discipline or the practice is stop, breathe, be grateful right now. Just stop and be grateful for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you do that, even if you don't actually practice it, you have this awareness that you didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the funkiness that I'm feeling is I am aware that I'm not walking in that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what?
You're also, yeah, I think there's an important aspect to all of it, to not fake it and to not,
Yeah.
to allow yourself to be in the funk. Like sometimes there's going to be seasons where we need to be in that space and instead of running from it or hiding from it, like, or avoiding it, denying
Pushing it down.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like actually letting that stuff come up. And, my whole life I suppressed so much of my rage and anger that no wonder I was an insane animal every time I drank. And, like, no wonder I'd pop off, on the soccer field and get fouled out of games. It's like, hello, Hilary, like you were suppressing. There's just there's a time and space for all of that,
Yeah.
and that to me that's a version of loving yourself, is letting those parts out.
We
you
have to
know?
be honest, right? So getting honest, I think this season for me is getting honest.
I was just thinking for you, it's like, well, is that your way of loving yourself well or
I
better?
don't know. I don't even know.
Being honest, or how do you? What's a way? Like, what's something this week that you can sit with that is you loving yourself better than how you have?
When we get through talking here, I'm going to a meeting with my spiritual director, Craig, and Lisa, and we're going to go through a discernment exercise. So learning how to discern what you're feeling and practicing that.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds easy. Oh, you just have discernment. Well, we kind of suck at it. Some people are naturally inclined, like KK. She'll walk in a room or wake up one morning and feel the weight of the world and be crying. And what she's learning is maybe there's nothing wrong with me. Maybe I'm sensing the pain of the world, and then how to process that and not let it just eat your lunch every day. You're the same way. Like I don't, I'm feel sorry for the people in North Carolina, but I'm not losing sleep over it. You feel that on a very deep level.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that I know you and know that that's what you feel, then that gives me awareness that I wouldn't otherwise have.
Mm-hmm.
That's the importance of community.
Yeah.
Everybody brings different gifts and talents and stuff to the table.
Yeah, just different perspective.
Right. And just, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, even just us, you and I getting deeper with each other of where we're at. I mean, you told me that story today that I'd never heard before.
Which one?
I don't know if I want to say it on camera. That girl.
Oh, yeah.
But no, just, where was I going with that? I guess it's like I can see, where it seems like you're not motivated or be frustrated with you in those certain ways. And that doesn't mean I love you any less. It doesn't mean I'm any less proud of you. It doesn't mean that, any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So again,
Same.
that's holding that tension with people. It's like, that's where I think I'm learning with the conflict and like being close with people is we're going to see each other in these times where it ain't pretty.
We're seeing that at the house right now.
Yeah, I mean, look at the freaking house. It's a
Yeah, I mean,
shit show.
there's no room. But, I mean, I joke about it, but it's really true. Jesus didn't say, follow me and it'll be soft serve ice cream and unicorns. You know what I mean? It's like,
You always say that.
I know.
You should get that tattooed on you.
Soft serve ice cream and unicorns, like right
Just
here.
get like a soft serve, like a
yeah.
picture of it and
Yeah.
a unicorn.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, right underneath here. Like this
Barcode.
Zers are doing. They
Yeah.
all have the face tats now.
Yeah. What is it?
Just more of the younger generation
Oh,
are
yeah.
getting face tats.
Yeah. That's called being young. And how's that going to look when you have a
Well, there's older people.
Smurf right here when you're 90?
There's older people who have them too, and now.
But yeah.
Anyways, yeah, we need to wrap it up. What's your biggest takeaway?
Oh, that sounds very podcast-like. I'm still in it. I don't know. I mean, it's just being, breathing,
Yeah.
accepting the fact that I don't know everything I need to know, recognizing distraction, and then intentionally doing my part to not be distracted around things that matter. Having compassion there, having compassion with KK, where she walks 5 steps and has to lay down and take a nap, because she's really pregnant. Or just having grace for people.
Well, again, like we've said this before, you can't give away what you don't already have. If you don't have grace for yourself, if you don't have patience for yourself or love for yourself, we can put on this whole facade and be like, I love you. But like when it really comes down to it, like, I think that's what's so beautiful about friendship and any relationship is like
Family.
going through times where you're like, man, I think of my friendship with Darby, or there's several times where her and I could have easily drifted apart, walked away from each other.
Yeah.
Same with family.
That's happened with me.
Yeah, and then just like, and I've had to let go of friendships, or I've had to walk away from people who I knew weren't the best for me.
Healthy.
And then go, but having the people in your life where you're willing, both people are willing to walk through that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think ultimately it's like, for me, like right now, it's like in the midst of the chaos or the uncertainty, it's just like being okay with being on the way and being okay.
Being okay with not being okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've said that for years now. It's
Me
okay
too.
to not be okay. Like, and I've had to say that. And it took years for me to really be embodying that and walking in that.
Well, I say it like in a coaching context. I say it a lot.
Yeah.
But then I'm not doing it myself.
Well, and it's also, and I think that's the flip side of that is it's okay to be okay. Oftentimes we create much crap. I know I do that.
Negativity.
It's like, wait, things are really calm now and healthy, and I must let's ruffle things up a bit here.
Let me jack this up.
Let me self-sabotage or create some drama. And it's like, wait a second, I saw that with in my relationships. This is too healthy, it's boring.
Yeah.
I need to spice it up a little bit.
Let's cause some drama.
And that's my addictive personality and all that
Same,
stuff.
and you got that from me and your grandfather. But
Thanks.
if you go, I do that. I can get really emotional if I let myself here. But I have a good life.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful life. I've got a wife that loves me in spite of me.
Mm-hmm.
And because of me, and and I love her, and it's a good relationship, ups and downs. I've got kids that love God, that love people, that aren't spoiled brats, that are compassionate. I've got good friends. I mean, Mark and John and those guys, Bruce, got these good friends, Mike Dakant. I'm blessed. I don't have a lot of money, but I am wealthy in terms of just relationships and blessings. Uncle Collie, blessed to have him and Linda in our lives, our cousins, the family I came from, a sense of humor, learning how to laugh in pain and not just be a bitter old man. I mean, I have a wonderful life. So the day-to-day stuff, so you have to stop and get honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, your life may suck, but guess what? Everybody's got a version of that, and who are we being in terms of who we've been created to be, our culture, and the decisions and choices we make, around all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what about you?
I don't know. I think I think
What?
it's, no, yeah, I mean, there's a lot in there. I think it's just that whole being on the journey and being just okay with where I'm at right now. I've said this before, and I read it, I read it, I think, on one of the podcasts of like, hold on. I've said this before, but it's just the concept of the presence. The present moment touches eternity, and being the moments I reflect on in my life where I was the most in tune and alive, and there were the moments that I was being present to whatever situation. And that could be, being broken down on the side of the road in the middle of the jungle in Thailand, to, KK and I in jail, to
Right.
surfing, in the most beautiful sunrise I've ever been in, like with beautiful people, like
Your brother baptizing you.
Yeah, there's just where you're just fully engaged, and I think it's just, this is a reminder for me. I think this conversation of that being fully present and taking things as they come, throughout the day, and being not resisting. Like, it's easy to resist.
That's right on, man.
So,
not resisting.
and then just the rest. Like, if you're listening to this right now, I think it's, if you get anything from this conversation, it's how can you make room in your heart to rest? That doesn't mean you have to go book a week-long vacation solo on some beach.
Mm-hmm.
How can, in the seconds and the minutes that, drone on throughout the day, how can you find rest and say no?
Right.
And we can think of a million reasons why not to, and all the excuses and all our life situations of why that's not impossible. But we literally can create it in our heads. We can create heaven. We're carrying,
Like,
we can carry
yeah.
heaven in us. Like,
well, Jesus said that.
yeah, I mean, the kingdom of heaven is dwelling, literally,
us.
we are a temple.
I think so. That's the dichotomy. But I was thinking about you, and we were talking about you videoing your story.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it from a book called Do the Work by Stephen Pressfield, which is for people who are artists. He talks about having a beginning, a middle, and the end. And the presence you were talking about that's the middle. You're actually in that right now of this is the middle of your life. Mm-hmm. Being present in this and maximizing, not doing so much as maximizing being in God's presence and in his orbit and in relationship with him, and the peace that can bring.
Yeah.
And I'm wrestling with that because I'm unlearning so much of working so dang hard to just be God's good little boy, and God's going, stop. Be. I approve of you as much as I'm ever going to approve of you, and that's totally.
Right.
And you don't have to do stuff. The tension of that is, as you love God, he gets all over you, and it gets all over other people if you let it. Mm-hmm. Just the love of God and loving people.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
That it?
Yeah, I love you.
Love you too, honey.
Yeah.
Thanks. That was a good conversation.
It was.